So you are also, I think, a great schedule expert in college football. Do you think that this idea of a Big Ten SEC non-conference challenge where they line up and play each other should happen, will happen? And then I have said, and I understand like the 9-game, the SEC can cram it on the 9-game stuff. They got to get to 9. But if the Big Ten and the SEC would do that, I think the next day, the Big 12 and the ACC should say, okay, well, we're doing that too. We're going to do that against each other. Do you think that makes sense? What do you think of the idea of like a non-conference challenge like that?
Awesome. I mean, if you're telling me that, let's take SEC Big Ten. I mean, if you're telling me that, hey, there's going to be 16 games between those two leagues every year, and you're lining it up. I mean, first of all, Ohio State, Alabama, or Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, LSU, you go down the list of blue blood versus blue blood, and then really interesting programs like a Wisconsin going to Arkansas or Nebraska playing Florida. I mean, on and on. It's even if you get all the way down to the bottom of it and say, oh, Indiana versus Kentucky, that's pretty damn cool for the regions. I think it's off the charts, and it would just make the non-conference season sing. You would just be, we would all be in love with it. And I think the Big 12 and ACC should do the similar thing, as you said. In fact, I may be a little more radical in what I would do if I was the Big 12 and ACC. And you want to bring a little European soccer to this. I mean, if you wanted to kind of create a football association and then have relegation just for football, not for the other sports. They're fine in the other sports. They're great, in fact, in the other sports. But and that way you could get some of the best of the Big 12 playing against some of the best for the ACC. I think that would help both leagues and help them boost their numbers to get into the playoff. Maybe have 5 or 6 teams from those two leagues combined instead of 4 or whatever. And so I like the idea of some sort of crossover because, and I've had conversations with a lot of Big Ten staff, including recently, about this. And first of all, if the SEC doesn't go to 9, the 5-11 plan is dead to rights. It's not going to happen. And I bring this back because I've had these conversations before. Doug, you covered Ohio State for a long time. In 17 and 18, they lost one Big Ten game. And they still won the Big Ten championship. They lost on the road at a West Division team. They lost decisively, of course. If the Big Ten was still playing 8 games, regular season games, they may not play that game. They may be 8-0 in the Big Ten, and they may be replacing Iowa and Purdue with directional Michigan school. And then all of a sudden it's like they're in the playoff. And the fear that the Big Ten office has is that if the SEC stays at 8 and then they decide to go and everybody goes 5 plus 11, that it's a race to the bottom in the non-conference schedule. That it's like, if you're Ohio State, it's like, if I'm looking at Alabama and they're playing 1 major conference school and 8 regular season opponents and 3 nobodies, they're removing that damage that could be done by just playing a mid-level SEC team that Ohio State is personally experienced. Same thing with everybody. And so it's like, what's the advantage? Because they're going to take the 10-2 team over the 9-3 team every single time, the way the committee has voted this way, or 11-1 over 10-2. And if you're comparing yourself, and playing a 9-game Big Ten schedule against even the ACC, and you have 3 ACC teams that have won 10 or 11 games, but you're 9-3. But damn, you're 9-3 played Oregon and Penn State and Michigan or Ohio State, or a really good Iowa or Wisconsin. All of a sudden, you're like, we're playing this monster schedule, and then we're also playing an SEC team. And for what? Because we go 9-3, and now we can't get in the playoffs. So all of a sudden, people are going to just drop their non-cons and just go, we're just going to play nobodies. That's their fear. That's why they like the idea of protecting 4 teams, for instance, from the Big Ten and SEC. And I studied this pretty extensively and wrote about it a few weeks ago, Doug, that if the Big Ten would have went to a protected 4 that got in, and or the 5 plus 11 plan over the last 4 years, they'd actually lose a couple of teams if they went to the 4 plus plan. Just 2, but still, they're way down at the bottom. However, the 4 plan, the way they like it is, for a couple of reasons, is it allows them to pick who's going to be good. Because, like, take Indiana last year. Now, I'm an Indiana stan from last year. I saw them kill Nebraska. And I'm like, no other team in the country played both championship finalists from 2023 and 2024 in the same season. So kind of get off this Indiana hatred here. They played Michigan and Washington. They played Ohio State and Notre Dame. But they were 8-1, largely with a so schedule, not of their own making, but it's happened. Versus Illinois, let's say they were 6-3. They lost a tough one at Penn State, came kind of down to the end. They got blown out by Oregon, and then they lost a tough one at home to an 8-win Minnesota team. They're 9-3. Who's better? Well, we don't really know because one schedule is so much easier than the other, by the final results. We'll let them play. And then the winner gets in. So that way, because you look at Michigan's schedule this year, Doug, it is the easiest until the final week. I mean, everybody is pretty much, like Wisconsin and USC sound tough, but that's shallow. Look at what they've done. So if they're 8-1, are they better than, I'll just throw it out there, Iowa, who plays Indiana, who plays Oregon, who plays Penn State, who plus plays on the road at Nebraska and Wisconsin and teams like that? I don't know. And so let them play to figure it out because the schedules are so imbalanced now. So there's a long way of me talking about this, but I'm saying that it's going to change. Everything's contentious right now.
Yeah, and I wish it. I mean, I think the ultimate for everybody is a 9-game conference schedule, a 10th non-conference game that is a local geographic rival that you prioritize. And most schools, I think you could find that, honestly. Like a lot of them, you could find that. Even like, it's like, well, what Ohio State do? It's like, play Ohio State, Cincinnati a lot. And maybe not every year, but like you could find them. Play a national non-conference game, which would be probably this SEC Big Ten or the ACC Big 12 showdown, and then one bye game. One lower level game where you're playing I think that's the ultimate schedule. I think that's also probably a fantasy because teams want guaranteed wins. The lower level schools want the paydays to go lose those games most of the time or take a shot at a huge upset. So that might be a fantasy. So, but I do think we can see what the ultimate goal is, and the closer we can get to that, the better. And part of that, I think, has to be prioritizing geographic non-conference rivalries that really matter to people when they make sense. And so I think Kansas, Missouri, for instance, should take a look at what's happening with Iowa State and try to learn from that.